Hi, it's Gadget UK here again, back with a couple of Amiga 4000 videos. Now, if you've been watching the live streams, I've been doing some of the follow-on stuff to those boards on the live streams. I will be editing those down, initially uploading for the Patreons, you know, early access, so there'll be some edited versions of those videos. And there's a lot of stuff in those videos that aren't going to be part of this particular series, but I'll talk about them more towards the end of this this series. So thanks to Stephen for sending these. I'm going to pass you over to Stephen, and he'll just give you a little bit of backstory on the boards.
So these boards have been sitting in my loft since about 2011, and they've been damaged. They were battery damaged before I got them. I got them off eBay. And when I heard Gadget saying he would really like to own an Amiga 4000 one day on one of his streams, I thought, might as well get them down from the loft, take some photos of them, send them to Gadget. Which one do you want? He said, well, I'll tell you what, I'll take them both, and if I fix them both, I'll give one back to you. I said, thank you very much, Chris.
So this is an Amiga 4000 motherboard. Should look familiar if you've been watching the series I did there on Cather's Amiga 4000. It's the same revision board here. It's got the Super Buster socketed again. You can see some wire mods and things have been done to this, and look, the chip here is missing. All the pads have gone with it. Yeah, caps have leaked, that's clear to me. Although the ones on the audio circuit up there, I'll show you in a minute, they look alright actually. So it's got, I think it's an 030. Let's just carefully pull this off and have a look at this. Yeah, there's a funny solder point there, so it looks like maybe someone has resoldered one or two things on there at some point. It's got the FPU up there, but it is an MC68EC030 CPU. So yeah, it looks alright. There's definitely been some corrosion, can you see? The traces look a bit questionable there. So I've ordered in advance cap kits for these actually, both for the main board and the CPU board here. So there are two of these, so I'll just get the other one out. Can you see some corrosion down here as well? It's a little bit white and furry on the bottom. So yeah, there could be an issue there, and that's super white. That crystal wasn't in there right there. Did you see that? That's interesting. Is that being removed? Yeah, I was trying to get this to boot before and it wasn't doing anything. I think maybe that's something to do with it. That crystal is loose. Is it a socket? I wonder if it's got a socket. Yeah, it's socketed. Yeah, it's socketed. Can you see that? We can move that. So it's not like the solder points have broken there. But that might be why it wasn't booting. Maybe the crystals... Oh, that one there's out as well. Maybe those crystals have come loose. So we can retest that in a minute, because I did test these off camera just after they arrived. So again, same board revision. Look at the corrosion here. Ouch. Lots of green pins and things around there. The audio side on this one is looking a lot more corroded. You know, look at the legs on the op amp down there. But just like the Cather's one, I've ordered new ports here for both of those things, for the controllers and for the audio. Full set of new caps, so we can sort that out. Not sure if that diode's got like that. Maybe that's normal. I don't remember seeing a diode like that there. But you can see again, look, masses of corrosion here, and pads gone, completely gone. Now this is going to relate to the fast RAM here. The RAM slots look alright. They're probably going to need cleaning up at the very least, but that could be a huge problem on this. And Stephen did say he doesn't think either of these boards will work with fast RAM again. So I see that as a challenge actually. Let's see if we can get these boards both 100% operational. Now my understanding is one of these has got a problem with the IDE gal as well. I think Stephen said one of the IDE gals is faulty. I don't think it's this one, I think it's the other one. Yeah, the reason I think it's this one, and it could be this gal here, because it looks like someone's soldered. Stephen did say no one's replaced it. So just moving the camera a little there, you can see the solder points on here. That kind of looks like that's been reflowed, and the sticker is a bit weird on it. Mind you, they're all like that. If you look at these here, they're kind of like that, but they're flaking up a bit. But that does look like that's been resoldered to me. The JEDEC files for these gals or pals or whatever they are is available. my mind's blank at the moment. The Amiga guy, you know, created them. I'll put his name up there. He put them on his website, I think, and then they've been distributed from, you know, over the years. So I've got all of those. The big problem is, how do you reprogram these chips? I don't think I've got a programmer that will program them. I'm not sure. I've got several programmers now, but I don't think any of them will work with gals and pals. So if you know, you've got any ideas below, please let me know. We'll have to cross that bridge when we come to it. I might be able to get somebody out there to reprogram one of these if I tell them which one it is and send them the JEDEC. But I'd like to try and do it myself. So having a look at the audio circuit on this one, as I said we would do, it looks alright. The corrosion, there's a little bit of corrosion around there, you can see on these bottom traces and things here, but it's not too bad. So yeah, the mod that was done here, I think what they've been trying to do is, because this is missing, maybe it's I was going to say maybe something to do with the ECS or AGA mode. Maybe someone's put it in OCS mode, but that connection's actually going to Paula, strangely enough. But it might be one of the address lines or something like that. But I think that's what this bypass mod is here. It probably wasn't working properly because this chip's missing. Someone's tried to just get it up and running with maybe a basic graphics mode or something like that. The only reason I'm thinking that is because I did a look at how this was utilised, and that was the conclusion I came to, but I could be wrong. Yeah, so it's like a hot fix, really, just try and get the board up and running, I think. So you can see similar thing here, you know, the pins are totally corroded on that. So yeah, there could be some damage around there like there is on the other one, but on the other one, it's you know, the pads are all missing completely. So looking at the CPU card for that one, again, it's the same thing. We've got the coprocessor there. You know, it's an FPU, isn't it? Coprocessor is probably not the right word of right terminology. It's an FPU, floating point, and then we've got 68EC030 FE25. So they're both the 25 megahertz ones. So again, it's looking a bit dirty here, a bit dirty under here. But yeah, we can recap that and clean it up. So I think what I'll do is I'll go and test these again. Is this one more socketed as well or not? I don't think it is. Let's just flip those over. Yeah, it's hard to tell. I think the other ones had the crystal socketed. Oh no, this one has as well. Can you see that? They wobble. Yeah, that's something I never noticed. I didn't notice that when I looked at Cather's board. But you can literally pull these out like that. So yeah, now I'm armed with that knowledge, I'll test these again. I think Stephen did say they both at some point worked in the past, despite the condition they're in. And I'll be amazed, because like I say, I tried these before and neither of them worked, and didn't matter which of the processor boards are used here. Now I've got some memory, that's the other thing to point out here, but I'll be honest, when I tested these the last time, just before I put them into storage a week ago, I tested them with no RAM, because you should get a green screen, and they weren't even doing that. It was just like a black screen, nothing, like it wasn't doing anything whatsoever. So I'm quite nervous about this, more nervous than when I was looking at Cather's machine, because there's obviously a hell of a lot of damage around here on both of them, and neither of them seem to be doing anything at all, so it could be very, very difficult for me to work my way through these. So before I rush off and just plug these in, because of the corrosion that we've already seen around the CPU slots on both of these, I'm going to clean these with some vinegar and some IPA now. I'll do the same with the slots on the motherboard as well, you know, the socket part, because this could be why it wasn't booting as well. It might not just be the crystals, you know, making a bit of a loose connection. It could just be, you know, these. And we'll get the vinegar right in there as well at this stage. This isn't going to be a full clean of these boards here. I'm going to do that later, you know. But we've got to at least rule out this being anything to do with the black screens that both of them were, you know, showing effectively. The good news with these is the corrosion hasn't got around the CPU, because, you know, I've seen some of these where the CPU cards are just awful. You know, the corrosion has done loads of damage around here, and ultimately it just kills them. Anyway, that's not looking too bad, so I'll just leave that. I'll wipe it off with some IPA as well in a minute. I'm not going to show you everything here. We'll do the same with one of the motherboards now, and then I'll do the same with the other pair. So exactly the same thing, just a little bit of vinegar here. There's actually some contaminant in there, I can see it. It's like dust or fluff or something. Might need a few passes and stuff on this. I mean, there's a question in my mind is how they could be booted, you know, in the past, you know, if these have been working. Is there not a requirement for that 245, the one that's missing, to be there? Will it work without it? And it's a similar thing with that other one with I don't know what it is, a little small chip there that's missing, isn't it, in between the two SMD ones. Will it work without that chip? I don't know. I mean, obviously it's got that wire mod on there, which may suggest that possibly it could boot at the, you know, in its current state without that IC. It'd be nice if we could get both of them just to boot, even if you know, everything's not working functional wise or functionality wise. If we could at least just get them to boot, it's a good head start. Then I can start to gradually start cleaning things up, recapping and fixing the damage there, and try and get the fast RAM working on both of them. But just IPA now, same thing with IPA, and just dry that off. So I have it isolated off the floor here. I've got an adapter here that came from Amiga kit, you can see here. So it's an ATX adapter. If I just plug in my ATX connection here, there we go. And it's got a power switch as well, and it's got the correct connector. Now Stephen kindly provided one of these on one of the boards. There's no the metal contacts there. But I can always source some of those, so if we just carefully connect this up, it can only go on one way because it's keyed. There we go, that's that. This one's got ROM chips in here. Let's just make sure these crystals are flat because they were floating all over the place before. And we'll try with the first one of these CPU cards here. There we go, one unquite. Firm that. I'll just connect my SCART cable up and we'll power it on and see what happens. Yeah, so I'm not sure if you can see that. Let me switch it off and on again. You might just see at the top it says, hang on, I'm going to switch it back on. RGB. Oh, I got a green screen. We weren't getting a green screen a minute ago. Now we've got a red screen. So there is some life. It's curious how it's took a few power-ons to get a green screen. Look, it's not doing anything again now. So, I mean, it's very intermittent, to say the least. Green screen, red screen. Yeah, so I got more life out of this one than I had previously, that is for sure. So I've got the 2 meg sim in there now. Let's see if, oh, there we go. Wow, I'm amazed. Alright, yeah, it's Kickstart 3. Now the handy thing is I do have some more Kickstart 3 ROMs, so I might just dig those out in order that I don't have to keep swapping the ROMs around between these boards. But I did spend an hour, I kid you not, testing these 2 boards and I couldn't get either of them to boot. So that's really good news with that board. I think before I do anything else, what I'll do next is test the other CPU card. I'll just hold it up, this one, on that board to see if that works as well. At least we then know that the CPU cards both work okay. So I'm not sure if I mentioned previously, these both came from Stephen Leary. He said that if I can fix one, I can keep one, which is just unbelievable. It's just such a nice guy, what a nice offer. You know, I would not be able to get one of these myself, probably. So as you can see, that's working as well. I am amazed. I'm amazed. There's hope for this one. There is real hope for this one. But we'll just carefully, if we can, remove these from this one and just fit them into the other. If that works, at that point, I'll perhaps go and get my other set. Just for the moment, I'm going to try and focus on, you know, one board at a time. So I'm not sure which yet. We'll just try and ascertain which, if any, is the best board to start with. They're quite well and truly stuck in there, those actually. There we go, that's the first one. So let's just stick that there. And we'll put that board away safely and bring this board in. So it's best to align these on one side, you know, get one row of pins in and then sort of pull it sideways to get the second row in. But that looks okay. Slot is looking super clean now. The other thing I didn't show, which I did off camera, is fold that paper towel and slide it up and down the slots there, and I did the same thing in here, just to collect any bits of dirt, you know, with the IPA when I rinse them with IPA. So let's connect power up and video, and let's try that one. So this one's not looking as promising. We've got no RAM in there at the moment, but it should be showing a green screen if it's booting properly. and it isn't. This is the thing. This is what worries me about this one a little bit. I mean, it could be that the corrosion has got worse on this since Stephen last did anything with this board. There's nothing else socketed on this board that could be causing us the issue there. I could try power cycling it a few times again. But you see, I spent a good, I don't know, hour, like I say, last time looking at these two boards, and neither of them showed any sign of life. I think what I'll do is I'm just going to swap the CPU board over, just in case this one's got a bad connection somewhere, and at the same time I'll check the crystals as well underneath, just to make sure those crystals are sat properly into their sockets. But this is the board that suffered a lot of corrosion around here, so maybe something around Lisa. Is that Lisa? No, that's the Alice, isn't it? Yeah, so maybe something around here or around here. I might, if this continues to not boot after just reseating the crystals and stuff there and the CPU card, I might just clean around here with some vinegar and some IPA and just give it a bit of a clean and then retest it, just in case we've got some corrosion that's maybe, I don't know, causing some bit resistance between some pins or something like that. But it's more likely that traces have actually gone somewhere. Just an exploratory clean, really. There's lots of ways of speeding up the process of working on these things. You know, you might just want to just clean the whole thing to start with and remove all the caps and just recap it and then start testing things and working things out and all that. But yeah, I'd like to try and do it in a few stages just to quickly ascertain what I can. I mean, you can see how dirty it is around it, it's unbelievable. But you see, this corrosion, it can sit between two pins, and it might not necessarily just eat things, it can cause conductivity, and a bit of conductivity between two address lines, or two data lines, or control signals and things like that, and you've got a problem. You can see the silk screen just wiping off here, look, corrosion's that bad. So you never know, it might be something like that. If I can just get this to boot, I would feel a lot happier. And it's filthy around here, look. It doesn't bode well for these wires and traces and things here. So my thought process looking at this for the first time, these two boards, is I'll be amazed if either of these work properly at the end. I really will. Because there is a lot of damage here. This is far worse than Cather's, for sure. I'm sure there's even worse examples out there. You know, you get a lot of corrosion around the SIM slots, that could be a pain, but it's probably, you know, it's one of the things that's easier to resolve. Yeah, you might have lots of fixed wires and things there around the SIMs and things, and it could be painful removing them and replacing all the SIM slots. We might have to do that on these yet. But it's, you know, it's when you're looking at address lines and data lines versus schematics and things, it's not that hard. Well, it is hard, but it's not as hard as this random stuff like this around here, where you're like, what do all the pins on that chip go? Where do they go to? Some on the other side of the board, some to things nearby, and there's a lot of things around here to check. You know, I could be at this for weeks. I hope Stephen's not expecting he's back super quick, because it could take me weeks or months to get one of these 100%. I was going to give Stephen the better of the two boards, which might be, thinking about it, actually, it's probably the other one. Having said that, we've got to somehow fit a chip on there when there are no pads left on it. So you can see the damage is absolutely horrendous here. Every single pad's gone. But what we do have is a load of vias. Now the vias are offset. The ones for the pads on this side here, before it's just on this side here, just near the capacitor. So, and they kind of go in a zigzag. So it's like pad, 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 like that. And then it's the same with that one there, but they're on the and they're on the inside of the where the pads should be here. A bit further down, you've got the little vias. So I could, if I cleaned those vias up all the way along, make sure the vias are okay through to the other side, I could literally cut the tips of every other pin off the new chip and put it there and sit it on top of the vias, I think. And that might be what I have to do. So again, it could be totally messy and unorthodox and really difficult to do, but that might just get us out of a pickle. That actually might solve the problem. Yeah, it's looking quite awful around there. The traces and vias and things there are looking damaged, I think. I don't think it's just a bit of dirt, it's corrosion again. Oh, this is far worse than I thought. So much for that idea. Look what's happened under here. Yeah, so I think someone's tried in the past perhaps to consider relocating the chip, you know, soldering wires or something on here. And some of these vias here, the traces going to the vias are broken. For example, it looks like you've got some cuts here where you go to the actual vias. Because you see the chip profile, you would be able to align it with those, and as long as you cut every other pin short, you would be able to solder it on the other side to those wires. I mean, I could still do that. I might have to put some fixed wires on this side to these wires, but it looks like the wires are actually shot here as well, so I don't know, it's a nightmare this. Actually, all is not lost here, and you know what, I think what might have been done, and what I may do myself, is mount the chip on the underside, because the pads and traces and things here aren't that bad, actually. When I've tinned this all up, it'll probably look okay. Now, the problem is the profile's flipped, isn't it? So what we'd have to do is mount the chip upside down, but that might not be as crazy as it sounds. If I actually found a way to mount the chip upside down, fix it, I don't know, stick it down with a double-sided pad or something, and then in theory, I might be able to use wires to join, because there's not a massive amount of connections there, although it's very fiddly. The other thing I could do is mount it upside down and bend the legs downwards so that they meet with these. They might not be long enough to do that, I don't know. Anyway, there's a couple of options there. But after having cleaned these traces here, it looked like just flux or something was on them. So I don't think they're completely cut. The ones on this side are a lot worse. I'm not sure what this is here. It's like a browny mark that's quite thick and it's like glue or something. So maybe a chip was glued down here. Maybe there were some wires on there, because that doesn't look like flux. It's just not coming off. Unless it's just really sturdy. I don't know. Yeah, look, it's coming off, look. It's just flux. It's just well and truly baked onto there on that bit. That's why it kind of looks yellowy. I mean, it looks browny, bronzy sort of colour up here because that's the copper traces. But the flux there is like a thick yellowy brown. Anyway, that's looking a lot better, actually. So that cleaning made no difference whatsoever. It's just not booting, this one. It's not booting. One thing I have noticed with this is the picture's sort of come and gone, like, we've had a black screen and then it's gone off. Like there's been no sync generated at all. And then it started to come back, and then I saw like a green line in the middle flick, which you sort of normally get as part of the initialization there. I'm guessing maybe as it initializes Lisa or something. So, and this is just from, pressing down, it started doing this and on various things. And I couldn't get it back on, and then I just left it powered up for like 20 or 30 seconds and it came back again. It reset a few times. That was obvious to me because of how the display changed, like it had reset itself. But it's not showing a green screen, so it's dying pretty early in the boot process. It's not even getting as far as testing the RAM, or maybe it can't control the video output. Oh, these were a nightmare. I've swapped over to the other board again now, which was booting. I mean, it didn't initially. I had to, reseat the board a few times, remove the crystal around, and then it seemed to start working. That last one, we got a green screen, and eventually it booted when I had a sim in it. Well, this is now black screening as well. So I don't know. They're both super annoying, for sure. Well, I kid you not, this first board, I have literally messed with for the last hour, trying to get it working again. So how we got that, you can see there's no RAM in here. It should be given a green screen, it isn't. It's just given a black screen, just like it did right at the start. So I'm not sure what is going on. It must be a bad trace, a bad connection or something. It's just amazing how the first time I tested it, it was doing what it's doing now, where I couldn't get it to boot at all. And then earlier, as you saw at the start of this video, this one worked just for, while I was testing it there, and then I swapped over to the other one, came back to this one, doesn't work again. I've tried both CPU cards here, reset the, reseated this, took this off numerous times. I've took the CPU card off numerous times and swapped over the other one, and it's just the same. The only thing I can think of is, like I say, is it's bad traces on both of these that are intermittent, but also it could be that both CPU cards need recapping, because there is corrosion around here. You can see on this side of the CPU here, look. So maybe both these CPU cards aren't great. Maybe that's what it is, and maybe the caps, because all the caps are bad on these, that the smallest bit of noise is interfering with it booting or something. So I might clean up these CPU boards first, I think, and recap both of them. Clean off, the corrosion there, reflow those, clean these pads up here. I do see some questionable looking pins here. You might not be able to tell, but yeah, there's one or two that are a bit greeny. I might just try cleaning this again now and see if that's got something to do with it. Well, I think we made the right decision focusing on these. Look at this. This has been left just overnight. Can you see that? Can you see that white crystallised stuff? Look at the slot here. This looked pristinely clean yesterday. So, yeah, this is going to be part of the problem, I think, with these. So I'm going to need to soak these for a while, I think, in some vinegar. You can see it's kind of like a crystallised stuff. It's like a white, fluffy, crystallised stuff. Yeah, I don't know what that is. Don't know. Could it be a mould? I don't think it is. I think it's like, it looks crystallised to me. But look how dirty this is here. Those were spotless yesterday. Absolutely spotless. I am amazed. And they're both like that, look. And as you look down it, can you see? You've got like, you might just be able to see like dark coloured pins. You know, they've been significantly affected by leakage. I mean, you know, the clue yesterday was this look here looks dark. So we'll swap these caps out, we'll reflow this, we'll just clean up and stuff. I mean, I might just, I don't know, soak these in something for just 10 minutes or so with a bit of vinegar to make sure it's, you know, it's got time to get right in there and stuff, and then I'll just brush it down with some IPA. But the first thing I'm going to do is, before we do that, is just replace these caps, because it could be part of the reason why, you know, we tested on that first board, it sprang to life after, you know, I don't know, several reboots. It started working, and then you know, it was working fine. It was coming up with a kickstart icon and everything there. It was like it was booting properly, and then we swapped to the other board, and then we went back to the first board. It wasn't working. I spent an hour trying to get that board working again. No, nothing would get that board working again. So yeah, very odd. So I've got the hot air set to around 400. Let me just reduce the airflow, because that's way too powerful. And you can see I've got it on a metal container here, just stood off the mat, because I don't want to melt my mat, obviously. Yeah, I can smell fishy electrolyte already. So, you know, it's going to be a combination of bad caps. Yeah, that side's coming off. There we go. That's one down. This one's right next to that socket, isn't it? I'm going to do that one last. We'll get a bit of Captain tape around it. Let's do this one next. But you see, from my experience, that's one of the things you can find with caps. One minute they work, you know, and then they don't. Like the board can work and then it doesn't. If you think back to an example as a Mega CD, Sega Mega CD, when the caps got bad on those, you can't get it to boot at all when the caps are bad on those. Yeah, that side's loosening up. What you don't want to do really is wobble it from one, there you go, from one side, so just lift it. I think we lost a pad there, can you see that? I can't tell. Or maybe we haven't, maybe it's just corroded. It looks like that. Some people would add flux before doing this, but you know what, it just burns off and just makes an absolute mess when you try and add flux to use with hot air. Or it just evaporates. I've got some no clean flux, you stick that on here and use hot air, it'll just evaporate instantly. That one's the worst one, I think. It's loose now, I think. There we go. So again, I'm not sure if we lost half a pad there. Yeah, I think that pad there's okay. It kind of looked like it came off. And I think that one's alright. Can you see it's just corroded? Half of it looks black. That's all it is. So we didn't lose a pad. So is this going to protect it? I honestly don't know. Honestly don't know. It's we'll just have to try it, won't we? Let's try and focus on the can itself if I can. Yeah, that side's off. There we go, it's come off. Phew. Hopefully we've avoided melting that. Let's just carefully peel that off and have a look. Yeah, there we go. No damage. No damage. So, I've got two cap kits here from Amiga Kit. Now these were for the is it 3640? The 40 board, but it's the same caps. There's just 5 instead of 4 and they're all 22s. So the next thing is to get a bit of flux and desolder braid and just try and gently clean those pads up here. So I've just had to open a new tube of flux. On a previous video, someone was like, "Oh, he's only just had some new flux, he'll be alright for flux now." But I tell you what, you go through flux so blooming quickly. That flux, this is the flux actually that came from Cathus with his 4000. There was like 1 or 2 tubes left. So I've got like 1 spare after this. So yeah, I'm nearly out of flux again. Despite the fact that I had some obviously recently. Well, it was around Christmas time, wasn't it? So just using the Heiko here from Dermot Sweeney. I've got it set quite low, 350, because you know what, these pads aren't going to survive very well. They might just come off now just with a bit of heat and some desolder braid. I don't know, let's just see. It might not even be hot enough, that, because it doesn't seem to be wanting to melt. Yeah, I've increased it just a little bit there to 380 because the solder wasn't melting. There we go. Oh, that's better. Can you see that? That pad's come up quite clean there. Let's do that one. Yeah, those aren't too bad. So this one down here is the worst, so please don't come off. Oh, what you don't want to do is do that, join it up and then pull the braid away. Those are awful. Let's do the one next to the FPU now. Did I refer to that as the CPU before? Oh, I didn't mean to. It's FPU. Yeah, that one's not so bad. Yeah, that's looking pretty clean actually, I think. There we go. And on to the last one. Does that one come off? I think that one's just more corroded than the others, surprisingly. Yeah, there you go, you can see, look. You've got a silver pad back there. If you heat for too long or press too hard, you will lose the pads. Anyway, those have all survived, so let's now clean up. So I've got IPA on a cotton bud here. I'm just going to be gentle here because they could be slightly lifted from the corrosion here. You know, the epoxy that holds them down could have weakened. On that one I think not. You know, as you've cleaned it a couple of times there, past a few passes, you start to get a feeling as to whether you can press quite hard or not, and I think we're okay with that one. That looks good as new. Let's just get the excess off from around there. Yeah, look at that, they look brand new. So that's all the cap points cleaned up. I'm just going to gently use the fiberglass brush on here just to see if we can get these pads here looking somewhat cleaner. It's not that important because obviously nothing's going to go on there, but and it'll come up a bit clean with vinegar when I've wiped that with vinegar as well. But they are dirty. The other thing we need to do is just gently wipe over here as well before I add some flux onto this and try and reflow these. It's just the bottom, the top of the chip looks okay there, I think. Give a wipe over it anyway. So I might have to redo this in a minute off camera. I just want to just dab into these here like this. And we're going to get the odd solder bridge, like you can see, forming there because, well, I'm not sure why. Because I'm not adding any extra solder, but nevertheless, the way the solder distributes, we will get a bad connection there. But I need to do this because these pins down this side of here are absolutely terrible. I mean, I could just drag along here, but you know what? I'm just going to even up the more pins bridge look. The main thing is just to give each point here sufficient time to reflow, try and get the corrosion off these pins here particularly. And we can remove this solder, perhaps add a bit of fresh solder with some more flux in a sec. As I say, I hope it's just I just hope it's not game over for this this board. But the reason I'm doing this rather than just adding fresh solder to start with is because we're going to be removing this solder now with the braid here. You know, all those lumps there, they've all clumped up. We're pulling it off with the braid, and that's what I want to do. We'll do that a couple of times actually. You know, I'll just repeat that now with the braid. I'll bring the braid in, and we'll try and remove some more, especially down here, because this, in fact, let's add a bit of flux. This area here is really crusty. I just hope the traces are okay. Yeah, very little solder coming off there. Yeah, so I spent about a minute or two just reflowing those connections there. There's lots of sticky flux on here, look. On that bit in particular. It looks far worse than it is now. It's looking quite clean after being reflowed there. Anyway, I'll show you the result in a sec. Hopefully you can see it's okay. There's still the odd pin around here that's just got a little bit of discoloration on the pads, but you know what? If you keep soldering and soldering and soldering that, you're going to start losing pads or pins or moving things. You know, the traces might lift up and slide around and all that sort of stuff. So we've done enough there. Obviously it needs to be cleaned properly yet with the toothbrush and stuff. I'm going to get the caps on and then just clean the rest of the board up. And as I've shown before, there's a silhouette around it. Can you see it's like angled here? And the component has got like a little angled piece on the plastic, black part, the plastic there. So, you know, you put the angled part here, so you can't really go wrong. You know, you really do need to use magnification just to make sure you've got it aligned properly, and then, you know, before you solder, just make sure you can see what you're actually doing and it's in the right position. Anyway, that's one side on. And if we just heat that now with a bit of flux on there, it's just a bit more solder. Yeah, we've got a little bead there. Can you see that? Just a really nice small clean solder point. Anyway, I'll do the same for the remaining three. I might need to find a container or something to sit this in just to try and leave it soaking for a while, because that edge connector, you know, this is the thing, you know, unless you can soak it for a period of time, it's going to keep coming back. This is the problem with alkaline damage and electrolyte. I guess in the electrolyte's alkaline as well, I think it is, from memory. And bring in the toothbrush here. And as I say, I'm going to do the extended area anyway, so I'm not too worried about going everywhere here. And we'll perhaps dry it off with some hot air in a minute. If you kind of tilt it as well like this, then a lot of the IPA, you know, that's got the flux in it will just run down the board. And there's very little on there because I think I've got most of it off with the cotton buds. So it's obviously leaks through to the other side here. I'll try not to smudge or smear that. Just wipe around it. So other than the slot, the caps, as you can see, look fantastic, good as new, no worries at all. This side of the chip here, it's a lot better. It's not perfect compared to the other sides, but you know what, it's a lot better. There's none of the greenness, so we just need to deal with this again. So I might try and submerge it, as I say, later and leave it soaking a bit, but what I'm going to do now is use vinegar again and just leave it for a bit, because I didn't yesterday. I just literally put the vinegar on and cleaned it up, you know, with IPA. So we'll leave some of that on there. We'll try and get quite a fair bit in, and I'm just going to leave it for 10 minutes or so. Over to the other one. Whilst I'm not going to recap this one just yet, because I don't resolder or anything, because I don't want to interfere with it, we do need to deal with this. I don't want to leave that there, so I may as well retreat this one with vinegar now and leave this one soaking for a bit as well. It's not going to do any damage. It's nowhere near corrosive enough. You'd need to leave acid, you know, an acid on there for a prolonged period of time. You know, if you left it on overnight, for example, yeah, you could do some damage with acid. And I had one person ask me in the last video, well, what happens if you don't clean the acid off? What happens, you know, does the IPA neutralise it? Well, IPA won't neutralise it, but what it will do is it'll wash it away. As long as you wash this thoroughly, it's not a problem. I've used vinegar quite a lot recently on some things months and months and months ago, and I've re-inspected them recently as part of the videos, and I cleaned it all off. Because I cleaned it all off, there's no damage, there's no, it just looks pristine. So that second board has been soaking for a while here, and I'm just been cleaning it with IPA here. It's had a good few minutes already with lots and lots of IPA brushed in and all around this. And what I'm going to do is just literally pour a load of it in here like this, and continue to brush, because I want to totally flush out any contaminants that may be in there, and I would hope that overnight it won't come back again. But I can see myself revisiting these every day or two for the next week until these have been totally flushed out. The other thing you could do is, I mentioned it a number of times in the videos, never done it myself, never needed to, and I don't have a dishwasher, but stick this in a dishwasher. Salts and things you need to be careful about, but as long as you cleaned it with distilled water and IPA and stuff afterwards, rinsed it down properly, dried it off, in theory, a quick wash in a dishwasher might be the best thing for something like that, because that connector, very difficult to thoroughly clean it out. The other thing I did previously, and I didn't show you, was squash the paper towel like this and do a bit of this to try and clean any contaminants out that way. You're wiping over the surface there, so hopefully you would dislodge things and absorb the IPA that way as well. Well, as you can see, it did boot. We got some pixels there out of place over a period of time. So whether that's because it's warmed up, I don't know, but this was dead yesterday. So I'm amazed after cleaning up both boards again and recapping one of them. Yeah, now we're getting a yellow screen. So there's something not quite right with this board. We can try just changing the CPU card over again. Let me just do that, because that's the one that hasn't been recapped. And I've noticed that wouldn't work at all to start with, whereas the one that has been recapped just worked instantly. It came straight up with a green screen with no SIM, and then I put the SIM in and it booted. Yeah, and look, that's booting now, isn't it? There we go. So they did need recapping. I targeted the right thing first there. Both these CPU cards were unreliable due to the capacitors, but also the corrosion. Now the other thing is, I've noticed that there are some pins that look weird on these cards, even though they've been thoroughly cleaned up now. Just as of a few minutes ago, I only finished cleaning them. And just looking at them, I see a couple of marks on some of the pins, actually. So I'm going to need to use something a bit more abrasive. I might try some deoxit. Anyway, let's switch that off. I'll try it with the other one again. It'd just be nice to see if we definitely get a problem with the other card, and then we can recap it and retry it and see what happens. The other thing I've discovered is, from a bit of trial and error, I thought, I wonder which size SIM is in the 2 meg position there for the chip RAM. Can you put a 4 meg 72 pin SIM there? Yeah, you can. It works. It's using a 4 meg SIM at the moment. So if I switch that on again, see what happens this time. Yeah, it's booting this time, I think, isn't it? Maybe. No, it's not. Yeah, so that goes to show that it's this CPU card at the moment. Now bear in mind that contacts have been cleaned up on this, and I cleaned up the board again as well, because the board was equally as corroded as the slot was again. So that one is going to need a recap. Let's just fit the other one again very carefully here. Get it in the right place. Where is it? There we go. Just press that down. And let's try powering it on again. If it boots straight away, that is a big clue. Or has it stopped booting again? I think it may well have stopped booting again, actually. So, if I'm honest, this board, in fact both these boards, are doing my blooming head in. This one in particular, because this is the one that was booting, and then it wasn't booting, and then it was booting, and then it isn't booting again. It seems to be that when it's warmed up, it stops working. When it's cold, it'll boot, which is confusing, because you'd expect the opposite with caps. Generally, the caps do all need replacing on this, but what I mean is, when you've got bad caps that stop a board from booting, when the board is warmed up just a little bit, maybe 5 or 10, 15 minutes, you may find you can then get it to boot. This is the opposite. This is like, it boots when it's freezing cold with awful caps that have all leaked everywhere, and then it stops working after maybe 10 or 15 minutes of being warmed up. So it could be the board's warming around a chip somewhere, and it's pulling a trace apart where a trace is corroded and broken. It's barely making a connection. That could be the issue. It could also be that the electrolyte is around various things here, and that electrolyte is starting to hold a charge or something. I don't know. I don't know whether you'd be able to do that, because you need metals and things. You'd something around it. The electrolyte on its own is probably not enough to do that, but it's weird anyway, nevertheless. So I'm going to just clean again here. Strictly speaking, I should just dive in and start removing things and replacing things and soldering things, but I don't like working that way, completely blind. You know, that you saw in the previous 4000 series there, I like to try and get a board operational, even if there's lots of things not working with it, even if it's just diagrammed via some serial, but this is just not doing anything. So anyway, I'm going to toothbrush all around here again, toothbrush around the sims as well. You know, there are a few things on this board that, you know, are a bit weird. See over here, some corrosion's got onto that IC there. So I could reflow that. That one there's been replaced. The solder points aren't that great on it, so I could reflow and clean up that. And then after doing those things, maybe retest and see where we're at. So I spent about an hour cleaning various things up. There were lots of traces around here that I cleaned with the fiberglass pen and my scratchy tool, just very lightly, you know, just getting the corrosion off the surface. I don't see any damage around there, and I cleaned all around here, and I cleaned around here, and I cleaned that IC over there. It still wasn't working, so I've left it overnight like I did last time. So it's freezing cold in here now. I'm going to test this now. Let's power this on. I'll point you at the screen. I'm just curious to see, has the cleaning made this now so it won't come back on at all? Yeah, and that would seem to be the case. So it isn't just about cold starts, because the couple of times I've got it working has been when the board has been freezing cold. So yeah, this leaves me with a dilemma of what is the cause. Where do I begin? Where do I start? You know, I could start measuring clocks and things and looking at the address bus and the data bus of the CPU to see if I can work out what's going on. But when you've got this much damage, is there any point in doing that? Maybe what I should start to do now is, you know, resolder what I can resolder. Like that needs reflowing. That chip there that I cleaned up needs reflowing. I could start to bung some of these wires here. What I mean by that is, you know, clean on both sides first of all, and then get a piece of Kynar through. Make sure that the surface is scratched around the via so that I can solder on both sides. And literally fill the via with, you know, Kynar and solder. And just do it cleanly so that you've not got like, big wires and things stuck out here. It'll just be a little solder blob. If I do that with all those wires there that are suspect, and some of the ones around here, retest it at various stages, maybe it'll come back to life. If it does, that's great, and then I can just focus on working out what I'm going to do here to fit a replacement, you know, the IC that's missing. Oh my god, after a power cycle I saw the little green line flick in the middle, which is an indication to me that it's done a reset, and as you can see it's come up. So yeah, the temperature sensitive thing is still there, whatever it is. The good news is it does work when it's cold, but not for the first, I don't know, minute or so while it's cold. It's bizarre. It's like it needs to ump a little bit and then it works. I guarantee if I leave this on for about 15 minutes or so now, it will freak out, it'll glitch out, and then I won't be able to get it back on again for the rest of the day. Yeah, so I'm going to do what I've just talked about, fixing what we can fix on here. At the same time, we'll swap out the caps. I don't know whether there's a cap sat on the reset circuitry somewhere on here. There may well be. I honestly don't know where the reset signal comes from on one of these. I don't think there's a 555 or anything like that. It's going to come from somewhere else. But let's replace the caps while we're here as well. I'll ignore the audio section for now. We'll do all of the main ones and focus on the audio section last, really. I don't see any sense in rushing to do that now. And then we can just retest and see what on earth's going on, whether anything's any of these little things as I go along, whether they make a difference or not. So I'm going to focus on things in a sort of priority order. Like these here have clearly massively leaked, and these are like kind of like the main caps for smoothing the rails and things coming from here. So it stands to reason that that's a good place to start. I'm just trying to cover this connector here. That should do. Let's just move that tape in a little bit there. There we go. I had the captain tape over the solder points there. What I don't want to do is damage this plastic connector here. Got quite quite a high airflow there actually. We'll just turn that down a bit. Doesn't need to be so high. It's freezing cold in here this morning. God, I can smell electrolyte already. It'd be easier if I wasn't right next to... There you go, it's come off, look. It'd be easier if I wasn't right next to the Molex connector there for the power. There we go. So that's those two off. Those are both the same size, I think they're 47s. So I've got a brand new cap kit here from Amiga Kit. It's exactly the same kit we used on that last 4000 actually. So it tells you the locations here. The only thing it doesn't do, it doesn't say what size they are. It should do really. It's just like A, B, C, D, E, F, and then I think they've got these marked up on here. So let's just tear this open. Get all these caps out of here. Yeah, can you see like we've got A's, B's, blah, whatever, you know. So just a bit of vinegar initially here. You could argue that it would have been beneficial perhaps to clean with vinegar before removing them. So just a little bit of flux on these pads. Yeah, 380 might not be enough, let's see. Yeah, struggling a little bit to melt the solder there. So I might just go a little bit higher. In fact, let's do that. Yeah, I've gone up to 400 there because the rails these you connect to here, you know, the traces, they're quite long. There you go. Oh, it's really hard because, there you go. I've not got the braid the right way round. I want it sort of side on. Yeah, there we go, that's looking alright. You can see that's the first one done. Yeah, I'm pleased with those. They could be far, far worse than that. So again, make sure you get it around the right way with regards to the positive and negative. The negative is the band, and it's got the slanted bits on this side here which correspond with the slanted parts on the silkscreen silhouette there. So again, just get that position, use some magnification, hold it down, solder one side and then the other. So I need to clean the solder off there. The one thing I was going to just do is I've got some flux on these diodes here. I want to reflow these. I'm just going to just dab into them and just let the solder reflow there because they looked a little bit affected by the alkaline. So one thing I would say, and this is something I've learned myself from doing the previous one and moving now onto this one, I didn't need to hold these down. It was just literally make sure it's totally aligned in the centre there and that the pads on either side look spaced correctly and stuff, and you know, as near to the middle as possible, and then just bring the soldering iron with the solder very careful under magnification onto the actual pad, and it flows straight up to the pin. You don't even need to hold the cap down. It's took me literally 2 minutes maybe to do all three of those in total. So that's speed improvement versus, you know, the way I've been doing these previously. Sometimes if the pads are super small on the board, you might need to hold the cap in place because you can't avoid accidentally moving the cap. But with these, the pads are so long, if you just flow the solder onto the pad, it naturally flows up to the over the cap connection. You have to be careful, obviously, not to put too much pressure on with a brush like this. You could damage the pads. If you had some really loose pads there, yeah, you could damage it. We'll just clean further afield here as well, because obviously the corrosion has kind of, you know, leaked around this area. So let's power it on, see if there's any difference. I wouldn't imagine it would be, but it's always worth a try. So I think the next thing we'll do here is reflow this. I don't think it needs removing, it just needs a really good reflow. So I'm going to get a bit of Captain tape just down there, if I can, just get it right at the bottom, stick it up the side of that, just to avoid me doing any damage there. I'm going to just go over this with a fiberglass pen initially here. To be honest, most of the corrosion's come off like that there. But anyway, we will reflow this with some fresh solder and some decent flux. That's looking pretty good on that side. Yeah, this inside bit here is going to be hard to do. Yeah, it's looking really clean. It doesn't even look like it needs a reflow. It's a bit of a mysterious one, that one. In the sense that, you know, how has corrosion just got on that one chip there? Because the socket here looks alright on both sides, and everything around it looks okay. So it's a bit weird. Anyway, I've just cleaned with a bit of vinegar. But we'll get some flux on there and we'll reflow it anyway. Tiny, tiny, tiny bit of solder on the iron, and we'll have reflow. I can't see where the flat part of that tip is. I really need to get some better tips for this iron. Yeah, hiss in there. Yeah, that is corrosion. Could argue that maybe I should remove that. Did you see that spark then? It's like a flash from the iron to the captain tape. That was a bit weird. The reason I'm holding it there is because I can hear that sizzling. That sizzling should not be happening. When the sizzling stops, you know you've kind of burnt it all off and the flux has done its job. So I mean, I've heated that way more than I would have normally, you know, heated around that area. This is going to be the really hard bit, because we are literally going to be almost touching that there. There's not as much hissing going on this side as there was on the other side. So I think what I'm going to do now is get a load more flux in there, and I'm just going to drag along, because I've got to be careful not to get bridges, and it's going to be really hard to fix them if I do. Let's see if I can. Yeah, I think I've just about pulled that off. It looks alright. So let's pull the captain tape off. No damage, that's good. Yeah, that's not too bad. We've got that cap there to do in a second. And we've got that cap on the other side there. Might do those next, I think. Well, you know what I'm like for not doing things in the order they say I'm going to do them in. I'm going to reflow that. That's not going to be causing any problems. I'm just going to do it anyway. And then we'll do those two caps. I'll do the clean-up work after I've done those two caps, because it's next to this one here. It's not that far away, is it? Again, we'll just add a tiny, tiny, tiny bit of solder to the tip. We don't really need any, because if anything, there's a little bit too much on some of the pins there. Can't see what I'm doing here now. And then we'll, yeah, just bob into these like this. Just even the solder, really, more than anything, because that has been swapped out previously. And whilst it doesn't look bad, there's just the odd salt like there, you know, that corner there, the odd solder, that's a bit of solder that's stuck out a little bit. Yeah, that's not so bad. I'm not sure that side there on that chip was soldered on properly on all the pins, because some of them look bone dry actually, and then after adding a little bit of solder and flux, it flowed really well, and you can see now there's definitely solder there. So anyway, I've got a piece of captain tape over there again. It's really restricted, this area. I'm struggling to get, there you go, near the thing, there we go. That's that one out of the way. If you're going to recap one of these yourself, you might want to just remove all the caps and then fit the caps. But I'm doing them one by one, just to make sure I get the right ones in the right spaces, and I'm a bit lazy like that. So I've been putting a red dot on the top of each one, so I know which ones I've done. You know, I cleaned up around there, then retested it. It's just the same. So having reflowed the few things around here and replaced these caps, that's made no difference to the thing at least booting. So I'm sorry I had to cut the video short there. There's just so much footage. I kid you not, I've got like 60 gigabytes of footage. So I've cut a lot out. The stuff you've seen, I've cut tons and tons and tons out. But I tell you what, I'm about a quarter the way through the footage. So thank you very, very much to Stephen. Sincerely, I am so amazed at the generosity. Sending this has just meant the world to me. It's took me a lot of effort to get these boards working. As I said, the live streams cover some of the stuff towards the back end of the repairs of these. Finishing off a few things, yellow screens and issues with the floppy drive. We tested the serial and parallel ports and stuff out. But I will, as I said earlier, edit those live streams to shorten them down, put them up for Patreons as early access. So thank you very much. The next part should come up within hopefully a few days, I think. And for my patrons expecting sort of regular edited videos, thank you for supporting me over this period, because I realise I've been doing a crazy amount of live streams. So I will try and, I'll still do some more live streams, don't worry, we'll be back in a day or two with some live streams. But what I'll start doing is trying to edit them at the same time and get an edited version up, etc., so that people don't have to endure 2 hours of a video when it could be compressed down to like 10 or 15, 20 minutes, etc. Anyway, thanks for watching. I'll catch you in the next video.